when I got the news, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I was never a person who really aspired to have kids growing up. Wasn't really it wasn't really on my goal list, especially when my plan was to pay off my loans and go travel for a bit. So for me, it did really kind of derail me mentally for a bit. I haven't, spoke about this to a lot of people. That was probably the first time in my life, definitely the first time in my life where like I resorted to alcohol as a coping mechanism, right? So for me, someone who grew up from the time I was like 12 years old, man, and I like got addicted to like fitness and health and nutrition and stuff like that. And then just kind of built on that my entire life. I was kind of like this weird, like 14, 15-year-old kid who was really into like stuff that other kids weren't, right? But that news really threw me for a loop. And like I said, literally for, basically 9 months became an alcoholic. It was one of those things for really the first time in my life, I felt like I had no control, right? And that was a scary feeling for me. Fear of the unknown, like you mentioned, and I didn't like it. And for me, I didn't know how to cope with it.
Welcome to the Driven Dad Podcast, where we celebrate dads that live with passion and lead with purpose. On this show, we'll host some dads that live incredible lives. Being a dad is the most important job you'll ever have. Get inspired by our amazing guest dads that refuse to live life in mediocrity and live epic lifestyles with their families. Welcome back to the Driven Dad Podcast, guys. Today's guest is a seasoned strength and conditioning coach, entrepreneur, and lifelong athlete with over 20 years of experience helping others unlock peak performance. Based in Nova Scotia, Ryan runs his own performance studio where he works with athletes of all levels, especially hockey players, guiding them through elite training and long-term health. Ryan's story goes way beyond the gym, from overcoming serious injuries and failed businesses to reshaping his identity as a father. Ryan brings raw honesty, resilience, and a relentless commitment to personal growth. He's a man who once wasn't sure he wanted kids and now lives to be the best possible role model for his 2 children. This is a conversation about fatherhood, fitness, failure, and finding purpose in life's hardest moments. Welcome to the Driven Dad Podcast, Ryan.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate that, buddy. Some intro.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. It's always nice to hear some things like that about yourself, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I think it's our East Coast mentality. We don't celebrate our own wins enough, and we're pretty humble, I think, generally speaking.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, too, like, just thinking back, just listening to you read that, sometimes you forget about some of the hard times that you went through as well, too, along the way, man. And it's, it allows you to appreciate kind of where you're at in life at different points when you're able to kind of look back and reflect.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny. I was thinking back, I haven't sat down with you since probably close to 15 years ago. And basically the reason, if you will, that you're here today is because when I met you 15 years ago, you had this energy that I could really feel, right? And it's crazy how that will go a long way and you don't really realize it, that day. Where's the music coming from? You hear that?
Oh,
Classic Instagram playing in the background. I'm like, where did I put some music on somewhere?
I hope we don't get to start over.
No, that's all right. I had my grandfather here once and his phone rang and he answered it mid-podcast.
Awesome. That's classic. You got to respect that, though.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. He's like, I'll call you back. Yeah, so what I was saying is like, I remember when I met you 15 years ago through the fitness industry back then. What I remembered is your energy that I could feel, every time I walked through the door where you worked at back then, you had this energy that was really radiant and I could feel it, and what's cool is that's probably the main reason you're sitting in this seat today is because I became an instant fan of Ryan that day. No matter what you were going to do in life, I would buy your product or, support what you're doing because I know that your intentions are good. You bring energy to whatever you're doing and you're making a real difference in people's lives. So it's just cool to note that, whether you're doing something remarkable today or not, if you bring energy to, whatever you're doing, whether you're sitting at a desk all day and you just bring energy to the workplace, or you're interacting with clients, your indirect impact by doing that on a direct or on a daily basis, you never know where that's going to bring you, right?
Yeah, no, and it's funny you mentioned that because this is one of the things I talk about with people, whether it's with my clients, potential clients, or even just having conversations with people about what I do. And this isn't something I did on purpose. It's something that kind of evolved, and just something that I kind of was able to recognize over the years is that when we first met, I was in sales. I worked for a supplement store, and I was there to sell products, right? But when I was there, and when you came in, anyone you talk to that would have interacted with me knows that I would never try to sell them something that I didn't believe in, right? So when you guys would come to the store, I wasn't trying to sell you like this, shitty test booster that I know is not going to do anything right. It was focused on the basics that you need. At first I would ask, how's your nutrition right now? Right. And then we try to fill the gaps in that with the supplements that you would need, whether it's omegas, you were a CrossFitter, so creatine, protein, amino acids, things like that. And then as I got into different careers, whether that's as a trainer, anything that I did, trainer, business owner, stuff like that, I realized that everything is sales. Everything is sales, and why I've been successful and why my clients and my athletes, I believe, have been successful. It's not necessarily the programming that I put them on. I mean, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a lot of good coaches, a lot of great coaches that put together good programs, right? But why I believe my athletes get great results is because I sell them on the end vision goal. I get them bought into what I'm selling to them, which is the success. It's not the squat, it's not the lunge, it's not the sprints, right? It's getting them bought in. And when someone is bought in, they're going to give 100% of that effort as opposed to 80%. So I feel like over the years, whether that's through working in sales, other stuff that I did, I believe that sales is a huge part of success.
100%. You call it sales, and I would call it relationship building, right? Because they
Absolutely.
trust you.
Yes.
And as soon as you gain their trust, you're good to go. You can sell them anything. Doesn't matter what you have for sale, you're gonna sell it to them because they've gained your trust, right?
Absolutely, and that's why the sales it's easy because it's not like a snake oil salesman where I'm selling a product that I don't believe in. It's I 100% believe in what I do. So sales might be the wrong term because a lot of people when they think of sales think of the greasy car, used car salesman or something like that. But that's what it is getting that person and getting that individual or getting that team, whatever it is you're working with, bought in to what it is you're going to provide to them.
Right. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how you kind of got into that.
Yeah, so my background's in kinesiology. I'm a kinesiology graduate. When I finished my degree at St. FX many years ago, I can't even do the math now, but it's been a long time. Went out to Alberta, worked in Calgary for a bit, worked in some different gyms, worked at some different prep schools and things like that. And then made my way back east. Missed home a little bit. Had to have my grandfather actually really took sick, and for me, he was a big part of my life growing up. To this day, probably the best human being I've ever met. So when he took sick, I said to myself, you know what? If this is going to be the end for him, I want to make sure that I'm there for him when he does go. And luckily, I was there when he did end up passing, and to this day, do not regret the decision at all. So after he passed, ended up moving back to Alberta. This time though, I was going to kind of actually take a break from the training and the sport and fitness side of things, and my goal was actually just to go back. Work in the oil field, pay off my student loans, pay off my debts, and then go travel. So I made my trip back, was on my way to Fort Mac, stopped in at my buddy's place in just outside Edmonton there, was going to, live with him for about a week or two. And lo and behold, it just kind of worked out funny. He's an accountant out there. And so I was there for a week, and on like a Tuesday or something like that, he's working. He's like, man, my boss's husband owns a farm. He's wondering if you can drive a tractor for him for a couple days and make a few extra bucks before you head out. And I'm like, yeah, man, like I'll go make a few bucks while you're working or whatever, right? So went and worked on his farm for a couple days, and he's like, how about I just hire you? And I'm just like, live with my buddy from university, work for cash at this farm, pretty laid back job. I'm like, sign me up. So yeah, I worked for him for a few months in Vegreville, Alberta, of all places. I don't know if you know where that's at, but there's not much there. But pretty cool to live with my old roommate from university. We had a great time. We'd party lots, and we were a lot younger back then, but it was a great time. And then came back home for Christmas. Was with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. Visit with her for a few weeks or whatever. Then once Christmas was over in January, went back to Alberta. Then got the call in February that she was pregnant. Like I said, so my plans kind of got a little bit derailed there. Planned to go there, pay off some debts, and then go travel. And then found out she was pregnant, and so then the pressure was on at that point. So I was at that point was just expecting my first kid.
Awesome. Awesome. And that led you to developing later on East Coast Athlete. Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So to talk a little bit more about that, and if I'm being a little bit too wordy and a little bit too in depth, you can just let me know. But when I got the news, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I was never a person who really aspired to have kids growing up. Wasn't really it wasn't really on my goal list, especially when my plan was to pay off my loans and go travel for a bit. So for me, it did really kind of derail me mentally for a bit. I haven't, spoke about this to a lot of people. That was probably the first time in my life, definitely the first time in my life where like I resorted to alcohol as a coping mechanism, right? So for me, someone who grew up from the time I was like 12 years old, man, and I like got addicted to like fitness and health and nutrition and stuff like that. And then just kind of built on that my entire life. I was kind of like this weird, like 14, 15-year-old kid who was really into like stuff that other kids weren't, right? But that news really threw me for a loop. And like I said, literally for, basically 9 months became an alcoholic. Came home from out west, not a penny to my name, didn't own anything. My current wife, my girlfriend at the time, she was still had a year left of university to finish her nursing degree. So we had our son August 26th, 2012. And 6, 7 days later, she was back at university, finished
Oh, wow.
starting her last year. So it was obviously a quick turnaround for me. And like I said, I was didn't have a cent to my name, didn't have a place to live. I ended up living with her parents, who were nice enough to obviously take us in. And so I went from being basically a disgruntled alcoholic, soon to be dad, to a stay at home dad, within a very short amount of time. So it was a huge transitional time in my life for me, for sure.
So if we fast forward, I already know part of this answer, but if we fast forward to today, and I know you're a very happy dad and a very present dad, and you're very proud to be a dad at this present day. But what would you say was, the contributing factor that drew you towards, essentially becoming an alcoholic? Like, was there fear there, fear of the unknown? Was it a selfish kind of thing? Or, if you're thinking about like someone that's becoming or gonna become a dad or thinking of becoming a dad, how do you think, you should look at it when you have that fear of like, oh shit, like I'm gonna be a dad soon, like, and you have all these things going through your head?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it was one of those things. For really the first time in my life, I felt like I had no control, right? And that was a scary feeling for me. Fear of the unknown, like you mentioned, and I didn't like it. And for me, I didn't know how to cope with it. Didn't know how to deal with it. I have a very supportive family. It's not like I come from stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's just, I can't explain why I went that route, because traditionally for me, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. The gym has always been my coping mechanism, right? When I was in high school, whether it's, break up with a girlfriend or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the gym for me, no matter what I was going through, was that coping mechanism. And even when I was going through, drinking all the time and, not wanting to be a dad, not wanting to home and face the music, it was, I still trained. I still trained. I still worked out. It was one of those things that I knew that if I let that go, I didn't know the outcome of that scared me more than anything.
Right. Yeah, that could have been a bad spiral.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would have been for sure.
Okay, so talk us through, like, your son was born. When did East Coast Athlete come about after that?
Yeah, East Coast athlete was years down the road actually. It wasn't anything that kind of it wasn't like my son was born. I'm like, yeah, like I love athletics and he's gonna play sports, so this is gonna be something I'm gonna build from day one. It was one of those things where I had a bit. It's actually weird. It's. I'll tell the whole story actually because it's very. Um, it doesn't really apply to anything. What happens afterwards obviously does, but me and my current business partner at the time, we owned a company called Sculpt Health and Wellness. We help people with their nutrition, lifestyle habits, things like that. And we were doing a seminar at, I think it was Olton College or something like that. And the main speaker there was Alex McLean. And so we were talking with Alex. He's the East Coast
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle guy or whatever, right? And I'd noticed that East Coast Lifestyle had done some sort of like partnership with a guy I went to university with in Halifax. Pro Edge at the time was the company in the performance center that he owned, and they had these Pro Edge shirts and with the East Coast Lifestyle logo on the side, and on the back it said East Coast Athlete, hashtag East Coast Athlete. That's when hashtags were starting to become cool, right? So I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, are you going to start targeting athletes? And he's like, no, he's like, that's just a hashtag that we use, you know. And I'm just like, like I really love that concept. Like it's not necessarily original because East Coast Lifestyle was already out, but I said I really loved that branding or the potential with that branding. So I was like, oh, cool. So I was thinking to myself, like, if nobody owns this name, like, okay, I'm gonna check the Canadian trademark database and do a
Mm.
nuance search or whatever, right? And lo and behold, the name was available.
Surprising.
Yeah, surprising. So I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna. So me and my business partner were like, yeah, let's buy that and let's start this brand or whatever, right? And originally it started as a clothing brand, right? And for me, it was like, okay. So at this point, I think my son would have been maybe like 4 or 5 years old, maybe probably four. And I'm like, okay, so like my kid's gonna play sports. He's already like super into sports, loves it. Like I kind of brainwashed him a little bit, but he truly and genuinely loves sports and athletics. So I was like, I'm gonna be in every rink. I'm gonna be on every soccer pitch, every basketball court across the Maritimes for the next 15 years. How can I monetize that? How can I, how can I make that part of my long-term business plan? So I'm like, well, clothing brand. I'm there with my kids. I can market the clothing, market the brand or whatever, right? And it'll be pretty easy, right? And that's what it kind of started out as, just an apparel brand. And now it's kind of evolved into my training brand. The apparel is separate to that. But now like I said, just love the brand, love the idea behind it, love the concept of it. So I evolved that into being like my own personal strength and conditioning brand.
Amazing. I didn't know that part that it was initially a clothing brand
Yeah.
and then transitioned into kind of
Mm,
a gym afterwards.
mm.
And who's your target client as far as the gym part?
Well, I just opened up my own kind of like a private training studio out of Amherst. Something I should have done a long time ago. It's coming from a small place. It's tough to train athletes for sport specific things in a typical commercial gym. So one of the issues that I'd always run into is like going to these commercial gyms. It's like, well, there's no turf, there's no kettlebells, there's no boxes, right? To do
Mm.
plyos and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, like I need to have my own space. So I opened up a small space, and honestly, everybody. This is gonna sound a little bit cliche and a little bit. I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but at the end of the day, it's like everybody. My concept is, and this is something that I'm actually building in terms of the brand, is like everybody I believe should train like an athlete. Everybody should aspire to be not necessarily an athlete who plays sports, but to be athletic. I mean, the science and the research shows now, like, if you want to improve longevity, like sprint. Like, if you want to improve longevity and quality of life, like build muscle, right? So, people who either come to me or ask questions or they say, like, oh, I can't come see you because I'm not an athlete. Like, no, you have to come see me. You have to come work with me. Because and not that necessarily we're going to turn you into a high level athlete and have you, playing world class pickleball or whatever it might be, right? But the things I do with quote unquote regular people is the exact same things that I do with athletes, right? It maybe not be on the same scale in terms of intensity, duration, and require the same amount of attention and effort, right? But athletes, when they work with me, they got to focus on their nutrition. They got to train, they got to sprint, they got to build muscle, they got to recover properly, they got to sleep, they got to take the proper supplements. Regular people need to do those things too. They need to, right? And I'm not saying they should, I'm saying they need to. Like everybody wants to live a better, longer life. And if you don't, I feel genuinely sorry for you because I think like, I mean, life's awesome. If you're living your best life ever, life is awesome. So you need to be doing these things. Do you need to be as disciplined as someone who like Jacob Melanson, who's going to be an NHL player this year? No, but you're still going to do the same things. You still should be doing the same
The
things.
focus is the same, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even though the outcome is going to be drastically different, the process is still the same.
Anyone who denies that is in their comfort zone and they're trying to justify where they want to stay, right? They're trying to
Absolutely.
give you a reason why it's okay to be 35% body fat,
And
why it's okay to, drink every day or eat garbage every day because they want to stay in that comfort zone and they don't want to, budge from what they're comfortable doing on a daily basis.
and even the people that do, it's just they mentally don't have the ability to put in the effort. Everybody has the ability to put in enough effort possible to make change, but it's the mental side of thing that holds people back, right? And like I said, these people, there's a lot of people that just like, you know what, I'm comfortable, I'm not willing to, so therefore I don't want to make those changes. But even for the people that do, it's there, that sticking point is always mental. It's typically not physical.
Yeah. I find a lot of people also, when they do decide that they want to make a change, they make all the changes at once. Day one.
Yes, sir.
Day one, no more sweets, no more alcohol. I'm going to the gym 7 days a week, so that's always a funny one when I see someone like, jumping in with both feet. It's like you want to encourage them, but at the same time you want to tell them pump the brakes for a second, are you adapting things that you can maintain for the rest of your life?
Yeah, and I even look at that, like I try to take a kind of a view of things like that and go a step further is like, why are they wired like that, right? And it seems to be a lot more common now than it was even 15 years ago when we would have met. And I believe it's that instant gratification thing, man. They think like if, you know what, if I put in 100% effort right now, I'm going to get the results immediately, right? And that's just not the case, man. It's really, really not the case. It's just showing up consistently. That's one of my favorite quotes, and I use it with all my athletes. Is just like keep showing up, man. Like keep showing up. When it gets hard, like just keep
Show
showing
up.
up. Just show up. That's
I agree.
that's how you make change, right? You can put in 100% effort for a day, 2 days, 3 days, even 5 days, right? But you're honestly better off putting in 70% effort for 6 months, a year, the rest of your life, right?
100%. 100%. So when you do train the more elite athletes, do you see a lot of people go from kind of your hands into the professional aspects of sports, like NHL players or to be NHL players, stuff like that? Do you deal with a lot of those athletes?
I mean, obviously, I'd like to work with more, right? But at the end of the day, like, no, not a lot. And here's why: is like very few people in general ever play or have the opportunity to play at the professional level, right? So, I get just as much enjoyment out of, a kid who played, midget AAA and, got drafted junior A. Um, I get as much joy out of that as someone like Jacob who got drafted to the Q 16th overall, played his first NHL game in Nashville last year. Like it's the
Cool.
same thing. It's just it's helping people level up,
Mm.
and not because of luck. Like you see, you're in the trenches with them. Like I'm older now, so like I'm not grinding out every workout with them and squatting the weight and doing the lunges and doing the sprints, but you're in the trenches with them and you see it and you see the kind of work and effort and really the heart that they put into their training, their recovery, their nutrition, right? So to see them be successful is an awesome feeling. It's
Yeah.
it's like I'm a dad to not just my two biological kids. Like I have, I all my athletes that I work with, whether it's the ones that are 12 or the ones that are 25, right?
Mm.
You have those proud dad moments when they level up and succeed.
Right. Yeah. That's what it's all about, is really, seeing someone achieve what they're striving for. It doesn't matter at what level. It's just, you made a difference. You helped them get there. And that it doesn't get better than that as far as like what you do on a professional level. If you're making a difference, you're doing something you're passionate about, it's unbeatable.
Absolutely. And you experience the lows too, man. Like, on the opposite end of the spectrum, like it's not always awesome. You don't always win. And, when you see the kids or the young athletes, like, not get drafted, get looked over, have a shitty season, whatever it might be, like you feel that shit with them too, man. And you go on all the emotional highs and lows.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that's just part of every business, right? Like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's some high highs and some low lows, and you just got to know that you're going to get through it. There's different seasons, right?
Yeah.
There's seasons of celebration and there's seasons of just getting through it, grinding through it.
Yeah, and I think that's the price of caring at the end of the day. I mean, you can not have experienced those highs and lows if you don't give a shit, right? So, but once again, the highs are always going to outweigh the lows. Like that's what we're striving for.
Yeah.
But we want that.
Yeah.
We want that. Like, Jacob was kind of my first like NHL guy, right? And when we started training together, NHL really wasn't even on his radar, right? But he gets drafted to the Q 16th overall. Okay, he's pretty good hockey player. Going into I think it's his 17 year with Bathurst. Wasn't he thinking about the NHL yet? All of a sudden pops off 50 goals this season, right? Oh, okay. Now NHL teams are talking about him. They're looking at him. It's like, okay, this is a possibility. And not only is he thinking NHL, right? Is I'm thinking like, okay, like this kid levels up. Like this is going to help me level up too, right? Because obviously the stuff that we're doing is working. And then lo and behold, gets drafted to Seattle, right? And goes to Seattle's camp, and that was Seattle's expansion year, so they didn't have like a main camp. It was just a camp with everybody. So they didn't have a rookie camp. So he goes to camp and kind of surprised everybody a little bit, and ends up signing a pro contract with Coachella, right? Their AHL team, and just just to see his whole journey unfold. Just kind of being like my first NHL guy, it's like, man, like then you start to have that belief in yourself and that confidence in yourself, and like what I'm doing is actually working and it is having a positive impact. And I talk about this a lot with people too, because it can't just always be about the coach or the athlete. We're very, very lucky to come from a very, very small town in Amherst. A lot of people don't know this. 3 professional hockey players have come out of Amherst in the last 4 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, 2 girls, Mallory Rushton. She actually worked with the Wildcats this year in their back office, but she played professional in New Jersey and overseas for a couple of years. Carly Jackson, who plays with the Toronto Scepters as a goaltender, and you got Jacob Melanson. Carly, I think, and Mallory are the oldest at 27, and Jacob's 22. So within a 5-year period, a small community of 10,000 people created 3 professional hockey players, 2 of them women.
That's insane. I'm currently reading Outliers. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
No,
but
I've heard of it.
one of the studies that they talk about is about hockey players, NHL players or professional hockey players specifically, and it says that I believe it's over 60% of NHLers are born between January and April.
Okay.
And it all starts on year 1, where those players are generally way bigger, stronger, faster, better than the other players that are born later on in the year. Mm-hmm. So it compounds. Year 1, the coach pays 5-10% more attention to those players because they're automatically already better than the other ones.
Yep.
That compounds onto year 2, where they spend even more attention on those players because they got more attention the previous year. So they're better than everyone else. And that compounds every year. And obviously there's other effects that can play a part too, whereas like you could be born in December, but your dad plays hockey with you every single day. So you're going to get good at it too.
Yep.
But generally speaking, those players get way more attention and a better opportunity to become a professional athlete along the way. So that makes me think so there's 3 hockey players that went all the way from Amherst in the last 5 years or whatever you said. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see obviously those are skilled players. They're athletic. They come from an athletic background, maybe whatever. There's some genetics that go into play, but there's probably 50 other players that have all those same, genetic advantages, athleticism, all that stuff. But those three players, they're the thing that they might have in common is that was their advantage, right?
I
And
wish.
or it could be something else, right? But it's very interesting to see, like, there's this pool of people that have the same genetic advantages, but what other outside contributing factor made them go, a step further than everyone else?
Absolutely. And not to kind of, like I said, I wish, right? Like I didn't work directly with Carly and Mallory. Carly is actually working with me this summer for the first time. She just finished her first year, or not her first year, sorry. Her season with the Toronto Scepters. Great season. We don't need to talk about that, but anyway, so getting back to my point, but I've always known these people. I've always interacted with them, right? So maybe it's just like I said, I don't want to kind of take credit where it's not warranted for sure. Because once again, it's no different than parenting. Coaching is the exact same at any sport. It takes a village, man. There's like, especially nowadays in hockey, like, well, I tell you, like Jacob himself as one player has a team of 7 to 9 people that are his coaches and is part of his team, right? And that's aside from like his family, his friends, and things like that. So you can say like, oh, obviously this person had an impact, right? But you can't say like this person was the person that made it happen, right? If the athlete felt that, for sure, then maybe like, but it's not like Jacob's not gonna come to me like, oh, Ryan gave me the best program ever for years and that's why I'm awesome. No, it's like, you know what, we developed that relationship like we talked about before. I gained his trust, and so did all the other people that are in his circle. Some of the people that I've actually brought into his circle, it's because I trust them. I've developed a relationship
Right.
with them first. I'm like, hey, you know what, this guy here, he can help you,
Right.
because I know maybe similar to me, maybe similar personalities, right? I know this guy's going to resonate with you. I know you're going to get bought into what he's doing, and it's going to help you level up.
Right. Sometimes that stuff can go back to like the culture of Amherst too. Like maybe people in Amherst have been working really freaking hard for hundreds of years. Like maybe they were all farmers. I'm not really sure what the history is, but that trickles down generation after generation, right? And now they're not farmers anymore, but they put that kind of work ethic into sports, right?
Yeah.
And that's why there's a lot of athletes coming out of Amherst.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting to think about it that
It's
way.
definitely a blue collar community, right? And when I say Amherst, I mean Cumberland County as a whole. It's Amherst, Spring Hill, Parisboro, Oxford, all those areas or whatever. But yeah, I mean it's. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I look at
Do you
Spring.
want to answer it?
No, not at all, not at all. Spring Hill. That's where I'm originally from. I still live in Spring Hill. Actually, I travel into Amherst. It's only a 15-minute drive. But Spring Hill is an old coal mining town, right?
Exactly.
So as blue collar as it gets, right?
Yeah.
So people in Spring Hill, they take care of one another and they work their ass off, man. And
Yeah.
Amherst is no different, right? They weren't coal miners or whatever, but once again, blue collar, hardworking, passionate people who are always willing to help one another, man. That's what I find about small communities is so amazing, is that like there's always you look at there's always drama, right? There's always those people that are gonna be drama, but when it comes down to it, when people are in need, small communities, man, help each other more than the bigger cities, for sure.
100%. I agree. Yeah, that's cool. So talk to me a little bit about your pivotal moment. So you kind of briefly said, being a dad wasn't part of the plan. You had probably one of your roughest patches, like right before becoming a dad.
Yep.
What was the pivotal moment of like going from that dark moment to becoming the proud father that you are today?
So this is going to sound absolutely insane, but I can pinpoint the exact second when it happened. I tell this story, not all the time, and a lot of people don't know it, but those I've told it to, they certainly respect it and they understand it because they've been there. My son Reed was honestly the worst baby ever. Like never slept at all. Like true story, he was 2.5 before he slept once throughout the night. Like was up. So like I said, I was doing everything. Like I was living with her parents, and they would help out tons. It was awesome. But every night I was getting up with him with the cry, give him his bottle, all that stuff or whatever, right? And like it's draining on you. It's I understand especially for women who are breastfeeding, I understand the mental and physical struggles that you have to go through when a baby is demanding. And babies are always demanding regardless, but especially when they're extra demanding. And Ree was about 6 months old, man, and like he was just crying, crying, crying all night, and like get up, give him to calm down. And 20 minutes later, he's crying again. And this went on. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and he's just crying. I'm like, I'm gonna try to let him cry it out. Hour goes by, not crying out. So I go into his room, open up the door, and he's bawling, bawling. And I have a hard time telling the story because it makes me emotional. But I walk over to his crib, and he looks at me and stops crying. So it's just like and smiles. And at that point, I'm like, oh shit, like what it's like this light bulb moment where like the things that I say and do in my presence is going to have a positive impact or a negative impact on this kid for the rest of his life, right? So it's like that was kind of like my holy shit moment, like fuck, like it matters what I do, right? And I can just help him by being there. Like that's kind of what it came down to, right? And just knowing that and seeing it and experience it literally did a 180 in that moment.
That's insane. And it's crazy how like we're going to have the biggest impact than anyone else on our kids. And going back to like the fitness side of things, I always, one of the things that I preach the most, I guess, is, leading by example and specifically showing your kids how leading a healthy and active lifestyle is going to have the biggest imprint on them possible. And that's kind of what you discovered in that moment is like whatever you end up showing your kids, whether it's a positive or a negative thing, you're going to basically decide the path that they're going to set out on, right?
And even just presence, right? It's just, I mean, we always have as parents, we're never awesome all the time, for sure.
Absolutely not.
Right. But just being present, right? It's that has as much of an impact as anything, in my opinion, just being there.
Mm. How do you manage like running businesses and being a present father? Do you find that there's challenges there?
Yeah. So like I said before, it's I was kind of designing my business so that they kind of overlapped, right? If I was selling apparel or doing whatever, like I was gonna be able to market and sell my brand when I was with the kids, right? Whether I'm coaching, whether I'm spectating sports, right? Like so that helped a lot. I similar to you, I have a great wife who's an awesome nurse who, because of what she does, allows me a little bit more freedom with my schedule and my time so that I can be part of that. The stuff that the kids do, which helps quite a bit. And it's still kind of a process and learning of how to always better manage that and make it better. It doesn't come without its challenges, and businesses and over the years have suffered at times because it's finding that proper balance between investing time and effort into your kids and the business, right? So you make the shift and you're putting a lot of time into your kids and you're there for everything and you're spending the money on hockey trips to Montreal and all this shit or whatever, right? And it's like, oh yeah, I got this business over here that's now bleeding money because I'm not giving it any time and attention. So then you got to shift back, right? So I'm always trying to find a better balance for that. And I haven't found it perfectly yet, and nor do I think I ever will, because as my relationship grows with my kids and as my business grows, there's always going to be those challenges.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I don't think there's like this perfect scenario where it's like, yeah, I figured it out. My business is running 100%. My family's running 100%. I'm present all the time in both of them. I don't think that necessarily can coexist. And I think what needs to happen initially is you being okay with that, having your priorities straight. Is it more important to show up at my kid's soccer game, or is it more important to me to maybe make two grand more this month,
Yeah.
and being okay with what you choose, knowing what's more important for you
At that time.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
absolutely. And that comes down to self-awareness, I think, and being obviously aware of like your business's needs and your kids' needs too. If my kid's, going through a rough patch, my oldest now, he's going to be 13 in August, and it's like he's getting to that age where there's, some hormones involved, and, there's external factors like,
Girls.
girl. Yes, surprisingly, yes. But like, hormones, girls, relationships at school, stuff like that. It's just like, okay, it's when I'm focusing on my business, sometimes it's easy to overlook kind of their emotional state. Um, so just being aware of, okay, where are they at right now, and are they good? So maybe I can give a little bit more attention over here to what needs to be done with the business,
Mm,
or maybe they're struggling a little bit, so I can let this slide and give them a little bit of what they need right now. So
right.
it's always changing and always evolving, and once again, self-awareness is huge.
Mm. Would you say it was more challenging when Reed was crying at 2.5 years old, or the problems that you guys are kind of going through with him at 13 years old?
Oh, that, you know what, man, it's I'll tell you this. In both cases, the challenges are on me. They're my responsibility. So any of the challenges that we kind of go through, it's not him that's causing them, or it's not my daughter that's causing these issues. It's just like, okay, I yet have developed the necessary skills to deal with this situation or deal with this stress that they're putting on right now, or without them trying. It's not like they're intentional with it. But that's just opportunities for us to level up as well too,
Mm.
and become better. But yeah, I think it's just, if I can't handle something, that's on me, and it's up to me to find out a way to adapt.
What do you think's like a good strategy to keep a good relationship with your kids and like have that kind of space or that openness to let them know that they can come and chat with you when they're 13, 14, 15, like in those tough years?
I'm figuring that out right now. With especially with my oldest, my son. It's been a different dynamic with him than with my daughter. They're two totally different personalities, first and foremost. But with my son and my daughter now as well too. But I've always been his coach, right,
Mm,
and his parent, and tried to be his friend. And that's it's a near impossible balance. It really is, because for one, he gets sick of me,
right.
right? I can't really blame him, because I'm not necessarily the easiest coach to play for at times, right? Not always the easiest parent to be a kid for at times too. So it's when you ask about that relationship and that open dialogue, it's I let him decide that, right? I obviously encourage it, like, dude, you can talk to me, right? And 99 times out of 100, he's like, I'm good, right? Typical preteen, teenager, right?
Mm,
But I'm very, very fortunate that I have people within my team that he does talk to,
okay.
right? Like, so, and not to kind of hone in on like someone like Jacob Melanson, right? I, it's insane. And I feel so grateful the fact that like my 12-year-old kid who loves hockey more than anything literally has a professional hockey player's phone number that he texts with his problems.
That's
Like
so
it's
cool.
cool because I do monitor my kid's phone, and I've seen some of the texts, and not only is my son comfortable enough reaching out to him, I got an athlete, professional athlete who responds, right?
Mm,
And to me that's like there's very few people on the planet that have that, and I'm, like I said, I'm super super grateful.
mm. That is a very cool scenario. So that sparks a question for me. So I'm not in the same age bracket as you are, but you're raising a bunch of questions in my head right now. So
Awesome.
phone wise, how do you guys handle that? Like, I know, like, I realize some of the scary things when your kids get a phone in their hands. I've listened to many podcasts that talk about, the strategies that they use. Initially, I thought it was a little weird, or not weird, but like it surprised me a little bit when I realized how much monitoring had to be done if you're a responsible parent. And I totally understand it, but I feel like ideally, in theory, I would want to allow or to give them a certain amount of trust and then monitor, a certain amount also. So, how do you guys deal with that?
So if I could start it all over again, I would do it a lot differently. So first and foremost, what I recommend is like you and your wife sit down and set the ground rules together, because kids are brilliant at that age. And I don't even think it's a conscious thing. I think it's a subconscious thing. They know what they can get away with each individual parent. Like Reed will ask me for certain things that he wouldn't ask his mom, and vice versa, right? So, but I think getting everyone on the same page with the rules and the structure is so key, because if you just give them a phone and there's none of that there, then something that might upset me or that I feel is inappropriate or whatever, The other side might not think it's a big deal. And as soon as you get even the slightest bit of contrast, man, the kids won.
Right.
It's game over, right?
Right.
So that first and foremost, I would have done that. Didn't. But we have worked on that. We have set some more ground rules. When it comes to the phone, so I was initially, I was always similar to you. It was like, I don't know. I always thought that, okay, we can avoid phones, but it's 2025 and kids are going to grow up utilizing this. Is going to be a huge part of life, right? So I look at it as, okay, that we need to teach them how to use it properly, right? And anytime you're learning anything, whether it's a skill, whether it's a discipline, you're gonna fail, right? You're gonna suck and you're gonna push the boundaries. And we've seen that with our own kid, right? Whether it's, too much screen time, with rules put in place, right? Hey, dude, you're getting the notification that your time is up, but you're continuing to go on it, right? So with that being said there too, needs to be firm consequences to that, right? But it's if I think if you can find the perfect solution to creating that formula, you'd be a multimillionaire. But like I said, it's like how do we teach these kids to use it properly? And it's the same as anything, man. They got to crash and burn, right? So like they got to fail, they got to feel that failure, right? And then they got to adapt, right? And if they get it back after what you think is enough of enough of a reprimand, and they continue to do it, then it's got to be something more. There's got to be pain, like some sort of pain. I don't mean like physical pain, obviously, right? But
Yeah.
it's got to sting a little bit,
Yeah, I
right?
agree.
But like I said, every kid's going to be different. Like I said, my 12, 13-year-old boy, he'll push the boundaries and he'll push my buttons. He'll see how far he go. My daughter, man, geez, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, so totally night and day when it comes to the two kids, right? So yeah, it's rules, ground rules that are set in place, concrete. Both parents got to be on board with it, and like when you follow through with any sort of discipline with it, it's got to be thorough. And I'm the one who's like real bad for like, okay, dude, like here's the consequence. We're following through, and it's just like, man, like because he pulls at my heartstrings, right? Like I
Yeah.
said, for me, like I was lucky. I was a stay-at-home dad for the first year of his life, and not many guys get that opportunity,
You have a
right?
strong connection with them now.
Very, we're it's funny because people will see us interact and they'll be like, man, that dad and kid hate each other, right? Because we butt heads all the
Yeah,
time.
you're too much the same.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're both hard on each other, man. But it's like we do have that connection. It's like, I didn't grow up in a household where it was like, we were like emotionally like my household growing up is like I love my parents, right? But my parents are like we would never say like I love you and stuff like that or whatever, right?
Right.
And that was one things like when Reed was born, I was like, I'm saying I love you to this kid every day. Like that was my number one rule. And like now that he's older, like man, he gets out of the car at school, he's like, love you, dad. And it's like and me as a kid, I was never like that. And it wasn't because I didn't feel it or it wasn't, it's just I never did it, right? So that to me is like, man, that's awesome, right? And but it was always so uncomfortable for me to do it as a kid. And even now, like me and my dad love each other. Like we 100% do, right? There's no doubt about it. But we didn't say it. Like it's almost like nails on a chalkboard when either one of us say it, right? And it's just a different dynamic.
I totally understand it. It's like you described my exact situation. And I still think about it pretty often because it still kind of baffles me. Like, I don't know why that dynamic exists between me and my parents when I feel so strongly the same way as you do in saying to my kids multiple times every day, I love you. Kissing them,
Yes.
like I know mine are still young, so I can still kiss them.
Yeah.
But it's not even a question. Like I don't understand why that would not be present in every parent to child relationship, for a lifetime, I guess, like to have that dynamic and openness of, telling yourself on a daily basis and knowing how important it is to tell yourselves that you love each other, right? But I can't understand why that dynamic exists between me and my parents, but I feel like the exact same way as you do.
And maybe like I said, just speculating, maybe it's like maybe that's something we wanted when we were younger, and it's like now we have that opportunity to give it and have, our kids receive it, right? Get something that we didn't have, right? I don't know. I don't have the answer for that, but I just know it's awesome. I'll tell you that. And maybe you can answer this. I don't think there's any answer to this one, but I tell this story all the time, and not all the time, but the people that I'm closest with, it's like, even when, because my dad is a totally different grandfather than he was father, like totally different, right? And so, like, even when he like says to Reed, like, "Hey, I love you," right? It still feels awkward to me when he's saying it to my kid for some reason, right? Maybe it's just I'm not used to him hearing it come out of his mouth or whatever, right? But it's still, even though it's not directed towards me, it's still a little bit awkward.
Yeah. I wonder if it's definitely a different generation. So
Yeah,
it might be
100%.
like a bit of a generational thing where like dads were hard before, like emotionally, there was no emotions. I think I saw my dad cry like once or twice, maybe in my whole lifetime. Uh, it's there was rarely any emotions that would come out of dads
Yeah,
in the previous generations, right? And I think that's part of it, where as they were trying to like portray that kind of image of what a dad was in
yeah,
that past generation. I think that's part of it for sure.
yeah. Certainly learn behavior, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. But it's refreshing to me to see where parenthood or fatherhood specifically is going in this generation, whereas like it's normalized and as it should be. It's okay to show your emotions, right? And I think we're teaching a lot to our kids in just saying that, emotions are natural.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to hide emotions, whether it's positive or negative emotions. Like everyone has them, and they're the reason for a lot of actions in your life. And like this is a healthy way of dealing with it.
Yeah,
Whether it's crying or saying I love you or saying, I have an issue with you doing this way or whatever, anger, happiness, like it's all okay to show those emotions in an appropriate way.
yeah. And I even think at times where, I use the example like when I talked about when I found out Lacey was pregnant, and I didn't know how to deal with that, right? I
Mm,
think that, it could come from growing up, not trying not to experience emotions and then not developing those coping mechanisms, right? So those are a lot of the conversations I have with my young fella now. He plays a lot of sports. He's a very emotional athlete, a lot of times not in a good way. But it's like, okay, I want him to experience those things, but if you're going to experience the highs and lows of these emotions in sport, right? You have to manage it, right? You
mm,
have to find ways to manage it. You can't let it take over. We talk a lot about body language and attitude, like when it comes to sport. And it's like, okay, if your attitude and your emotions are controlling your body, that's not good. So we got to
mm.
find solutions to that. But yeah, no, it's interesting when we talk about, how like it wasn't a normal thing years ago to say I love you, but now I think it's becoming a lot more, I won't say popular, but more, I guess, mainstream for dads
Yeah,
to do that.
accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, socially. Yeah. I like the subject of talking about controlling your emotions like during sports. I think for everyone that's competitive and that wants to, deliver the highest performance for themselves, I think it's super natural to have strong emotions. And I think it is, like you were saying, a very healthy thing to talk about, like to your athletes, to your kids, and so on, about how it's normal to feel those things, but to have like a strategy
Right.
to hash through them and to deal with them appropriately. Because I was the exact same way when I was young, and I can still remember things that are embarrassing, like when I think back about the way I acted on that day, or like for that specific thing that happened. But I think it was more so like, you know, my parents would just kind of let me go through it and then just ignore it after the fact,
Right.
right? And we wouldn't really talk about it in a constructive manner. Or maybe it would have been like, we don't do that, you know? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll just
Yeah, of course you
shut it
don't do
down.
that,
Yeah. I'll
but
just push that way down,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It was more like an awkward situation, right?
Hmm.
And obviously it is an awkward situation when you do when you act out publicly, but parents, I think it's their responsibility to, once everything's calmed down and you're back home or whatever in a private environment, have that discussion about, why, first of all, we can't do that. That's not how we deal with things. And it's normal that you felt, discouraging yourself or pissed off or blah, 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 or whatever. But that you should expect a higher standard from yourself, right? Like that's
Absolutely.
not how things are dealt with. And here are some suggestions of things that might work or that might help you calm down and make better decisions for yourself that will in the end make you look better and maybe give you possible opportunities down the road, right?
Absolutely. And I think even to go a step further and say, like, the emotions are normal in sport. For me as a coach, they're required, man. Like, give me a kid who's emotional. That's a kid that wants to win. That's a kid that wants to compete, right? And you don't want to take that from them, right? You give me a kid who loses and is like smiling and high fiving the other team, like, no, I'll move on to the AAA kids for sure because like sports are such an emotional event, right? So if there's no emotion involved, you're not going to perform at your peak 100%. I don't care if you're 12 years old, 22, 32. You need emotions, but once again, it's rewiring the brain to utilize those emotions in a good way as opposed to a negative way.
I love that. That makes me think about the participation medals, where basically you retract the emotions away, or you pre-decide an emotion no matter what the outcome of your performance and your efforts were, right?
Yeah, you devalue hard work. Like,
100%.
you're trying to get me started on participation medals?
Oh, let's go. I freaking love this subject, man.
Yeah, like, I mean, the science shows now that it literally devalues hard work. So these kids that put in the work, and to succeed and to get better, when they're rewarded the exact same way as everybody else, they're in their mind, they're, well, why bother, right? So why do we want to devalue hard work just to protect kids' emotions, right? Like, and here's what we're doing: we're robbing them of the opportunity to develop coping mechanisms. We're robbing them of the opportunity to develop the ability to lose properly, right? And we're robbing them of the ability to develop sorry, to use those situations to get better. Like, and I don't like, people will still argue about this. And I can even hear myself getting louder as I talk about these things because I'm so passionate about it. People who still will defend participation medals or say it's not a big deal. I'll argue that till the day I die. They are a big deal and they're a problem, to the point where my son has gotten participation medals before, and I'm just like, I told him, like, you can have it, but like, it means nothing. And now when he gets them, he's like, yeah, like, he throws it out, or like, he really doesn't care because he understands that it doesn't represent anything. It doesn't. We're all built differently, but you know, it, the long story. At the end of the day, in life, being better than other people at things matters, right? And not that you're gonna be the best at whatever you decide to be, but isn't it important to try to? Isn't that what life is all about leveling up, not getting complacent, always leaning into discomfort, right? So I mean, if we keep giving these kids participation medals, and then all of a sudden they're 22 years old, they're living on mom and dad's couch, not getting a job because they've never been held accountable and been told that they've been special their whole lives when really they're not, right? Who's to blame for that? Who's picking up the check for that?
You're 1,000% dead on. I believe in the exact same thing that you just said. And it's just not preparing them for the reality of life, right? It's telling them that whatever effort you put in, you're all going to get the same results, which is the biggest piece of bullshit that you could ever, create. And it kind of translate to into, like, I know at school now, I'm not sure exactly at till what level or till what grade this happens, but you can't fail a grade anymore.
No.
And that teaches you that the same exact message, whatever effort you put in, you're leveling up to the next level. You're going to the same places as the other person that put in twice the amount of effort that you put in. I went to, and not to shit on anyone here, but I went to a meeting at school for a parent meeting. and the teacher pulled us into the class, and I was expecting, like, oh, Elise could work on, her this, and Olivier could work on that. And the conversation went, and I know they're just in kindergarten, but everyone still has, little things that they can at least talk about, or, think about, and the discussion went, yeah, I have nothing to say. Everything's good. And I'm like, that's great. Like, I'm really happy to know that my kids are behaving properly in school and whatever. But I'm not here for you to tell me that my kid's perfect, because I know they're not perfect. And I'm 1,000,000% okay with my kids not being perfect. I know they could improve upon certain things, and I'd like to know what those things are, because they don't behave the same way with you that they do with me. I'm pretty sure of that, right? And I want to know what those things are. Like, are they disruptive in class? Are they non-attentive? Like, are they behind in, I don't know, reading or writing or anything? Just tell me.
And if they're ahead, what can we do to help keep them ahead? I
Exactly.
think that's your point, and that's what you're really passionate about, is like, in schools there's a standard, right? But if kids are beyond that standard, why don't we want to continue them on that trajectory,
Mm-hmm.
right? I use the example, my young fella, when he was really, really young, I think like 4 or 5 years old, loved math, like was just really like into math, good with numbers, right? Was doing like adding and subtracting. And so like when he's in, in school learning about adding and subtracting, he's obviously crushing it, right? And so he'd come home. I'm like, dude, you want to learn some harder shit? He's like, well, yeah. I was like, well, let's work on some multiplication stuff, right? Or I get him like working with money or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Let's work some decimals in there, right? Utilize money, right? And that's not saying that I'm an awesome dad for doing that, but I knew the school system wasn't going to do shit,
Yeah.
right? I know they're not going to do more things to challenge them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So why not? You know what? When we go to the store, hey Reed, you're going to go pay for your Subway sub, and make sure she gives me the right change back, verify, do the math or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like 6 years old,
That's awesome.
right? Like stupid little stuff like that goes a real long ways.
100%.
And he's continued on that, like in terms of like mathematics, one of his best subjects, loves it, right? Because he's way, he's still usually further ahead than the other kids or whatever, right?
Right.
But it's continuing to challenge them, and we should be doing that with everything.
Yeah, because if you don't get continuously challenged, you'll get bored eventually, right?
Absolutely.
And I wasn't like super good at school or anything, but school was very boring for me because I didn't feel like it was challenging me in the right ways, I think. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. So you've mentioned to me that you had a brief period in your life where you weren't talking with your own father.
Yep.
I'm interested to know, what happened there, I guess, and how'd you guys kind of dig yourselves out of that scenario?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool it's a pretty cool, like, I guess when I look back, it's just cool how it all kind of worked out, right? And I look at it as a positive at this point, all right? But people say like, oh, you went like 4 or 5 years not talking with your dad, like that's terrible. I'm like, no, like that's the best thing that could have happened for both of us or whatever, right? So, when for a few years, mine and my dad's relationship was strained for a few different reasons. I won't get into kind of details on that or whatever, right? But it just got to a point when I was living out in Alberta where I was like, you know what, man, like this relationship right now is causing me more harm than good, right? So I just need to shut it down and focus on the stuff that's bringing joy to my life, right? And this is before I had kids, right? So I was out there, I was pursuing like my training career and working in that field or whatever, right? And just our relationship wasn't good. So one day I was just like, you know what? I'm done with it, man. I'm done with it. And I can tell you right now, when I made that decision and knew I was gonna follow through with it, like I felt like 1,000,000 pounds was lifted off my shoulders. Like felt really, really good. Just felt a whole lot less stress. So anyways, we don't talk for many, many years. It goes by, and everyone the whole time is just like, man, like you gotta talk to your dad. Like you gotta talk to your dad. And I'm just like, yeah, like it. Like I'm not saying it'll never happen, but I'm just like, I think I know me personally, I need to be in the right place. Like this, the timing has to be right. And so it just worked out. Like I ended up having Reed, my first son, or my first child, and we still hadn't talked at that point, right? He came to the hospital. We didn't talk. Like he saw Reed or whatever, right? And I told myself, because people were telling me like your dad, he wants to see Reed. I'm like, listen, he knows if he ever wants to see Reed any time of day, I will not like I'm not that type of person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe subconsciously I thought that, you know what, and I wanted him to. I think that's what I needed. I needed him to reach out, right? Like that's what I was waiting for him to say, like, because I mean, we're both very stubborn. I mean, I don't know your relationship with your father and the dynamic there, but the saying or the term, cut from the same cloth. It certainly applies to us, right? So we're very similar. We're very stubborn, set in our ways. So I was like, you know what, like I want him. I need him to make the first step, right? And he made the first step in the sense that he like was around Reed, right? And I wanted him to have a relationship with him because I had the best relationship with my grandfather. Like I said, best human being I've ever met in my life. Always will be. So I wanted Reed to have that because I knew he would be a great grandfather. And so even a couple of years after, I don't know how old Reed was, but it was when I proposed to Lacey. Um, I invited dad, and I didn't personally reach out and invite him. Like I had someone coordinate, but he was there, and I proposed to Lacey. It was actually at Gusto's here in Moncton or whatever, and we didn't really chat. We just hugged. And that's what it came down to. So I think it was just like, for me, it was like, okay, like I'm making this huge jump in my life. I've already had a kid that I didn't want to have. I've made a transition there. Awesome. Never wanted to get married either. I thought that was just a piece of paper that ruined your taxes. Still do. But it's something that I made that choice to do to kind of, like I said, make more change, more positive change in my life. And it was just the timing was right. And it happened. It was a 4 or 5 year period where we didn't talk. And that's how it should have happened because we were never very vocal to begin with. Like it's like, when we interact, it was like there's not a whole lot of conversation. He's very quiet. We would go on road trips, like when I was younger playing hockey. He wouldn't even listen to the fucking radio, man. Like he likes silence, right? And I love music. So we're as much as we are the same, we're also polar opposites. So the fact that it worked out the way he did is like he couldn't have scripted it any better. It's like there's no word said. It was just a hug, and then it just all dissolved from there.
You
It
both understood
understood.
what happened at that moment. And
Yeah.
so the relationship afterwards, was it different from like previously, like from before you stopped talking to each other?
Absolutely. Like now, he's older now, and he's a grandfather now, and I think that most grandparents are different than they are as parents. So when I look at him as a grandparent now and the advice he's given, I'm like, you do realize you raised me, right? And like, he's like, yeah, but you said you learn a lot as you get older, right? So, we have a great relationship now. I mean, we still probably, the conversations are still very, um, minimal, right? In terms of just like not a whole lot of context. We talk every day, right?
Mm.
But it's, brief conversations on the phone. He's a little bit hard to hear into and he mumbles a lot. So that's part of the reason why the conversations, we got to make them shorter or whatever, right? But he's extremely, extremely involved with all his grandkids. It's not uncommon. Like there was, this is the crazy. People don't believe me when I tell them. So a couple of years ago, I was coaching. We were both, me and him, were actually coaching senior hockey together. I was the head coach. He was the assistant coach, and so we'd always be on the road or playing home games or whatever, right? So there was one day, I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. He was in Port Hawkesbury, like so Cape Breton, to watch one of his grandkids play hockey. Came back 2.5 hour drive to Spring Hill to watch another grandkid play hockey, then drove to Truro to watch Reed play hockey. This is in one day.
Wow.
And then we had to play a senior game that night in I think Rishabukto. That's one day, man.
What a day.
Yeah, it was, and once again, that's not a typical weekend, but he's always, like I said, he's got, I don't know, 6 grandkids or something like that, and doesn't miss anything.
Yeah.
And when he does, it's like he stole his dog or something. It's like, oh, I can't make it. He feels terrible about it. But yeah, he's super,
Right.
super involved. And I knew he would be. I knew he would be because my grandfather was too. And, we're cut from the same cloth, right? So he's very similar to his old man too.
Being a dedicated dad yourself and a present dad and having what seems to be a really good relationship and communication with your own kids, does it ever make you think about the relationship you wish you had with your dad, like when you were younger?
Yeah, no, not at all. Like it goes back to the same thing. Like, do you regret that 4 or 5 years we didn't talk? No. if we didn't have those years when we were younger, we wouldn't have the years we have now, right? Everything would have changed, or you have to assume it would, right? It's like the butterfly effect. So, I'm extremely grateful and happy with all the relationships I have now and what they are, more importantly than anything. So it's one thing to say, oh, I wish this would happen. Like, no, it's awesome because things are great now, right?
Mm.
So it's like, why would I sacrifice whether it's the relationship I have with him or my mom or whatever, right? If things could have been a little bit better or a little bit different, because we don't know, things might have been totally different.
Mm.
So same thing. If we didn't have that 4 or 5 year hiatus from each other, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. I 100% believe that we both needed that time whether it's like heal or
Yeah.
grow, evolve.
Mm.
So there's the only things I regret in life, man, are the things that I didn't do, not the things I did or the things I experienced, right? So that's why it's kind of one of my rules now. Like I hardly ever say no. Like I do it, right? Figure it out later, and whatever the consequences are, cool, right? But I hate regret, man. It's like one of my biggest fears.
I love that. I live the same way. And I feel like we're very fortunate that we figured out that even if it's scary to do that, it's going to bring the most, like the coolest things in our life when we say yes to everything. And I guess there's still some magic to saying no to stuff to simplify your life. But as far as like potential opportunities,
Opportunity, that's the word.
that's where the magic happens. And I think that that's an entrepreneur mindset. Like mostly is like entrepreneurs have the mindset of like taking on, calculated risk, and they know that there is a risk here. There's the risk of failure, and there's also the risk of success, which could be sweet.
Absolutely.
And that's really where the magic happens and where you create the life of your dreams and where you get opportunities that people don't usually get, right?
Yeah. That's I never I didn't mean to be an entrepreneur. Like I had no intention ever. Like I went to university, kinesiology degree, was originally going to be a teacher, did like a short placement at a school when I was like 19 or 20. I was like, not a chance. Not a chance. But was always passionate about helping people, working with kids, but working with athletes in general and stuff like that. Right. So I was like, yeah, like I'll try my shot at like training and performance coaching and personal training, all that stuff, or whatever, right? But yeah, so like when I first got into being an entrepreneur, it was when I was working at the supplement store where we would have met, and the same kind of idea, like similar to your story. My former business partner at the time, Jason Capson, came in and he was buying supplements and he was starting this like transformation challenge he was doing. And he called me the next day or was like sent me a message on Facebook or something and was like, yeah, like I really like what you're all about. Like I'm gonna get back into business and I'm bringing you with me. And I'm like, yeah, right, buddy. Like I need to make money. I got a kid at home. I got a wife, and she wasn't my wife at the time, but yeah, I got a girlfriend, fiance, whatever. I was like, I can't start a business. And so I hummed and hawed over him. Like, man, he was at me. He was bugging me, right? And I was like, okay. I came to two realizations. First thing, I asked him a question. I said, so we're going to start this business that you have this idea for, and we're going to be 50-50 partners. He's like, yep. I was like, okay, what's this going to cost me? He's like, well, to incorporate at this time, I think he said it was like $500 or something like that. So it's going to be $250. I'm like, so $250 and I own half a company. That sounds pretty sweet. I can afford that. Okay, cool. Check that off the list. And then I was like, how do I give up a job? It wasn't, and once again, not a great paying job, wasn't rolling by any means. Struggling still, right? But it's like, how do I give up a job where I know I'm getting steady income, right? And then I just thought to myself, I was like, man, like you can get a job anywhere. It's like, I'm not such a proud person that I couldn't go work at McDonald's or Tim. Like if I had to, whatever I needed to do, I would make it happen. So I was like, you're educated enough, you can find a job, right? Whether it's for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, until you get back to doing whatever, right? So I was like, fuck it, let's go. And that leap of faith alone, and once again, that took me like 3 weeks to finally muster up that courage to give him $250 to start this business. And from there, it was just like, I've been full blown addicted to it. It's been awesome.
That's cool. That's cool. It's so cool when you get over that fear of the unknown and like, you create all these fake scenarios of what ifs.
Yeah.
That never ever happened and probably won't happen. And you doubt yourself all the way until that first sign of success, right? And then after that, you look like a hero and you feel like a hero. But that's, those barriers are why most people won't ever get to that, that place of success, right? Because there's so many places of self-doubt and, fear scenarios where you invent, what if this happens? And what if I, don't succeed? And what if I go broke or whatever? But I'm kind of a little bit like you when I make some big shifts in my life or in businesses where I'm like, what's the worst case scenario? Yeah. And often that worst case scenario is, if you've positioned yourself in life where you're not overextended financially and, other aspects like that, the worst case isn't that bad, like no one's going to die. You're going to have a roof over your head. You're going to be able to feed your kids, and you'll take 6 months or a year to, get back on your feet, and you'll be good to go.
Absolutely. And you always figure it out. And that's when we talk about like whether it's the fear or the apprehension of the unknown, like when you kind of dive in, I don't know if that ever really goes away. I think that and I think it turns into excitement, like fear and excitement. They're the same physiological responses in the body. Your heart rate rises, your breathing rate rises. The only difference is the way we internalize it in our mind. One is fearful, one is excitement, but our body responds the exact same way. So I think over time, I think that fear starts to turn into excitement. But whenever you're making those transitions, like I experienced it when I was opening up my gym here over the last few months. Like I started in October, started doing Reynolds. Was so excited, and I'm getting like, because in my mind I'm thinking like, hey, it's going to take me this amount of time, I'm going to put in this amount of money and things are going to be good. Well, as you know, when you're doing stuff like that,
double everything,
double the money, double the time. And then it's like, it's getting closer to opening date, summer's coming. I got my off-season athletes coming in. It's like, holy shit, man. And then that excitement starts to turn into stress and anxiety, man. And it's like, back in January, February, before I opened, man, like it was a rough battle. Like I was, because I was doing all the work myself, not all of it. I had some help, like my dad helped me a lot. I had some other friends that were helping me a lot, but every day I was in the gym doing what I could to do the renovation stuff like that. And I'm not handy at all. Like I'm brutal at anything that has to do with whether it's like any kind of renovation stuff. So I'm there every day and I'm grinding it out, and I just feel like I'm not making any progress, right? And like I had days and weeks like strung together where it's like every day I'm telling myself like, just keep showing up, man. Like keep showing up. Like I would go in and it's just like this close to throwing in the towel and being like, fuck it, man, it's not going to be worth it. Just like shut her down and do something else, right? And it's just
crazy the stories you tell yourself, eh?
Yeah, you create these scenarios like you said, and it's and yeah, it's those moments aren't fun, but like once you finally start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, then it's once again that excitement comes back, right? So there's always those highs and lows. Doesn't matter if you're starting as an entrepreneur at 22 or continuing to open your 5th, 7th, 20th business at 42.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So Ryan, if your kids were listening to this in 20 years, what would you want them to remember about you?
Oh man. Gee, it's only a tough one because I don't want to get emotional kind of saying it, but it's just like, what I want them to remember about me is that my heart was always in the right place, regardless of what they might have felt in any situations. Like I said, I am sometimes a hard coach, hard dad to some degree. But heart is always in the right place, always want what's best for them. I would hope that in 20 years they would think of me someone who was trying to provide the best with what I could at that time. And that I was someone who was hardworking first and foremost. Like that's pretty much I kind of I want that, and I feel like that is kind of part of my identity is someone who's really really hardworking, someone who doesn't give up, someone who keeps showing up. But yeah, just someone who always had their best interest in mind first.
Awesome. Awesome. I really like that answer. Well, Ryan, thanks a lot for being on the show. Thanks for being a great dad that inspires other dads around you. You seem to be making a really positive impact in your community specifically. I really appreciate you, and I'm sure there's a lot of other dads around you that appreciate you. So once again, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Matt. And I don't know if anyone's kind of mentioned this that's been on the show already, but Like I said, I've been watching you for the last 15 years from a little bit of afar, like I said, not directly or whatever, right? And watching what you've done with different businesses, your involvement in like the CrossFit community, the sporting community, and now, like your kids and the dad community, man, like it's awesome. And I don't know if you get recognized or have gotten recognized enough for that, but I think what you're doing is awesome, and keep doing it.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you very much.
Cheers, man.